Hi, welcome back everyone. This is my second playlist on equations, on solving equations. In the first one I only dealt with situations where there was only x, and there was one x in particular, and it was only on one side, of course, of the equal sign. In each of these ones I'm going to have an x on each side of the equal sign, and in follow-up videos we'll end up getting into negatives and fractions and also a little bit of brackets here, and looking at what complications we can have to throw people off in exams. Very common. There's two things I always talk about, oh actually there's three, that are the major things that affect people in Year 12 still. One is fractions, another one is negative numbers, and then the big one is equations. It's amazing how many people know the rules but just make mistakes and don't know where to go wrong. So if you can keep looking at these videos and progress through them, it's the ones that come will give you more details of where the problems normally exist. But this is your first one in terms of x each side. My problem is, I look at this and I see there's an x each side and it says, well that's going to need to be sorted out. I want the equation to say to me the answer is, and that's what we mean by saying x equals. We're saying the answer to this question is. I could look at it and try to guess the numbers again, and it wouldn't be too bad on that question. You could start with try 1, try 2, try 3, until you find out the number that makes it true. But more important than that is the technique. I do tend to say to people, if there's x's on both sides, get rid of one of the x's on one of the sides. Now, most of the time we're going to end up with an x on the left. Most teachers will teach it that way. Doesn't really matter if you're heading up on the right. Maybe in some countries or some places it does matter. So I want to get rid of this 3x. Now I can't just go take x, because the 3 is actually what I call married to the x. Talk about marriage and divorce in terms of multiplication and division. Sometimes I use these things to try to get it to sink into your brain a bit better and gives you a bit of a handle. You can talk about marriage and divorce. Sometimes I don't talk about it at all, but I just mention marriage and divorce. I can't just separate that x from the 3 by subtracting it. But I can subtract all of 3x from this side. And if I subtract all of 3x from the right hand side, I've got to subtract all the 3x from the left hand side to balance it up. So if I take 3x from that side and I take 3x from that side, I'm left with a 5x take the 3x is left with 2x. Then I've got plus 2. The 3x take the 3x is gone, which was the whole point of what we did here, was to get rid of the x from the right hand side, so that on the right hand side we now only have 6. The interesting part now is back to the original two-step equations I had on the previous video. So now I can get rid of that 2 by going divide 2, divide 2, divide 2. As I always say to people, if you do division first, sometimes you're introducing fractions, especially as they get harder. So I prefer to get rid of the 2 first and the opposite of a plus 2. Remember, I'm always going to be talking about the opposites to both sides. Opposites to both sides, and the opposite of plus 2 is minus 2. And I want to do it to both sides. If I'm minus 2 from this side, I'm minus 2 from that side. So what have I got? That's gone. 2 take 2 is 0, so I'm left with just a 2x. 6 take 2 is just 4, and at this stage you could have just gone 2 2s to 4 and you could write down the answer of being 2. For those when it gets harder, you might notice it, that's a times by 2. So how do I get rid of a times by 2? I divide this side by 2, I divide that side by 2. 2 into 2 goes 1, I don't have to write the 1x, I can just write x equals 2. So the answer is 2. If I go back to the question, 5 by 2 is 10, plus 2, must equal 3 by 2 is 6 plus 6. So we've got 12 equals 12. So 2 is the only number in the world that will make that equation true. So for each of these, there will be one number that makes them true. There won't be 2 or 3 or occasionally 2 or 3. There's only one. There will always be one that we can find. So on this one over here, we want to get rid of the x on the right hand side, because there are x's on both sides. Come back to all the times, like the first moment you look at an equation, x's both sides. I want to get rid of this 3x. If I take it from the right hand side, I've got to take it from the left hand side. 4x take 3x. I'm only left with just an x. And I mean, you could just look at it and guess the answer. What plus 3 is 4. If you weren't sure, you can go take 3. Opposites to both sides, the opposite of plus 3. And you got 1. So I deliberately made that one. Sometimes it throws people off when it's just so simple. Sometimes the simplest ones make people up more than all the others. So this one here, I've got x's both sides, but what makes this one different is that this one is bigger than the 2x on the what we call LHS on the left hand side. So this is bigger. Some people prefer to go take 2x, and instead of having the x on the left hand side, you have it on the right hand side. Right here now I could go both, but it tends to get too long-winded. So let's get rid of that bit there. So I'm still going to go take 4x just to see what happens. Might change my mind in a moment and do it different. If I take 4x from that side, I take 4x on that side. Remember, the reason for doing that is so that x will be gone from one side. In this case, I do talk about creatures of habit. Habit for me, for most people, I'll originally try to get people to focus on getting it away from the right hand side. So now this is gone, we're left with just a 1. So I go to minus 2x. Now here's, be careful, the 2x minus 4x. We're taking away more than what we had, so we end up with a minus. So there's plus 9. So now, would it have mattered if I have the minus? Well, yes and no. How do I get rid of a plus 9? If I take 9 from this side, I take 9 from that side. And I've got minus 2x. It's 9 take 9 is gone. 1 take 9 is minus 8. You can get to there and just go, well, they now both become plus. Could talk about that some length. 2 minuses make a positive. You can, if you want to talk properly, if we go back to that was a minus and that was a minus, if I multiply this side by minus 1, and multiply that side by minus 1. Now your rules of 2 negatives apply. 2 negatives, always doing 2 negatives make a positive. So 2 negatives, like they join up with each other, they become a positive. So those 2 negatives become a positive. If you want more on negative numbers, I've got some playlists on negative numbers. So that just becomes a 2x. And then these 2 negatives, when you're multiplying, they become a positive, so that becomes an 8. So in reality, once you've got the hang of it and you're used to it, you can just go plus and plus. So you don't need to really write that down. Or in reality, you can also just do it in your head. You can go 2 watts or 8, you can just say 4. Nice and easy at this stage because every answer here has got a whole number. 2 into 2 goes once, and I have to write the 1. 2 into 8 goes 4. What can we do here? We're going to remove the brackets first. I cannot go take 3 here, take 3 there. Oh, I could try to do it, but mathematically it won't work. The reason it won't work is that bracket controls everything that's inside. Think of BIMDAS. By the way, Western Australia teaches BIMDAS. I know when I was younger as a teacher in New South Wales, they'd say BOMDAS. But the brackets have the power. So these brackets have the power over what's inside, so you can't just go take that 3 to get rid of it. So first of all, we've got to expand the brackets with the multiply. So the 4 times the x is 4x, and the 4 times the 3 is 12. 2 times the x is 2x, and 2 times the 10 is 20. So really this is the same as what we started with on this equation over here. It's just got that extra step involved. Then teachers sometimes try to put extra tricks in, but we might look at those later. So I don't want x's on both sides. Normally I get rid of it from the right hand side, so I go take 2x from this side, I take 2x from that side, the opposite to both sides. And I've got 2x plus 12, 2x's are gone, and I've got 20 left. So watch out for this one, it's really collecting like terms. 4 is something, take 2 is something equals 2. You used to sometimes talk about 4x raised, take away 2x raised equals 2x raised. Mathematically it's not really true, but it does help a lot of people. So now I want to get the x by itself. I can get rid of the 2 first, or I can get rid of the 12 first. Always easier in the long run to get rid of the plus 12 first. I subtract one side, I subtract the other. So this is gone, which is the whole point. Make the equation, each step look simpler. That's 8. What controls the 2? There's a times. If I want to get rid of a times 2, I go divide 2 this side, divide 2 that side. Remember, it's the opposites of both sides. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I can just write x, don't need to write 1x. And how many 2's go into 8? 4 times. So I could put that back into the equation and check it. Maybe I will. 4 into there would become 4 times 7. And over here it would become 2 times 4 plus 10 is 14. And 28 equals 28, so it's true. Thanks.